Well, as the G7 summit begins in Hiroshima, we look at the history of the group of 7 nations and how it is shaping the rules-based order. Our diplomatic correspondent Sitan Sibol finds this report from Japan.
The G7, or Group of Seven, originated from a small gathering of finance ministers from the US, West Germany, France and the UK in the White House Library. In response to the oil shock and global recession of the 1970s, the leaders of 6 countries, France, West Germany, Italy, Japan, the United Kingdom and the United States, met in Chateau de Rambouillet in 1975 to discuss economic cooperation. Canada joined the group the following year, and the G7 was officially formed. The first summit took place in San Juan, Puerto Rico in 1976. The European Union became a regular invitee to G7 summits in 1981, marking the expansion of the group beyond its original membership. Today, the G7 comprises Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the United Kingdom and the United States, with the EU also attending.
The oil shock brought these countries together, but Soviet Union was the unifying force for these countries. Now in 80s we saw the Iraq-Iran conflict, the Russian invasion of Afghanistan that led to the change in the dynamics of the grouping. It was primarily an economic grouping, but slowly and steadily started to have political dimensions as well.
After the fall of the Iron Curtain, the G7's invitation to Mikhail Gorbachev in 1991 and Russia's eventual membership in 1998 marked a significant shift in the geopolitical landscape. Inclusion of India and China in 2003 reflected the growing economic importance of developing countries on the global stage. Then Indian Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee was invited by France to the G8 Outreach Summit in 2003. The G8 summit in 2003, as it was known then, took place in Evian-les-Bains, France. In 2005, the G8 plus 5 was formed. It included Brazil, China, India, Mexico and South Africa. The grouping further recognized the rising influence of emerging economies. Between 2005 and 2009, India was a regular at the G8 Outreach Summit. Then Indian Prime Minister Manmohan Singh highlighted India's increasing role in global affairs. This evolution of the G7 into a more inclusive grouping reflected a changing balance of power in the international system. But things changed again. Russia's suspension from the G8 in 2014 following its actions in Crimea resulted in the group reverting to its former status as the G7. China, which at one time was a regular invitee, is also no longer on the list. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has been a regular invitee, or considered to be invited since 2019, when the French first invited him. After France in 2019, PM Modi attended the G7 summit in the UK virtually in 2021, Germany in 2022, and now this year in Japan.
As the G7 hosts its 49th summit in Hiroshima, it has come a long way since its inception in the last century. Now, today, G7 faces issues with both China and Russia. But also, there is the wider question, the relevance of G7. We know that BRICS has already surpassed G7 in terms of the economic might, something that was once a defining element of this grouping. With video journalist Sanjeet Siddhansable for WION in Hiroshima, Japan.
Let's now go live to Japan at the Hiroshima Peace Memorial Park, where the G7 summit has already begun, and the Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida is already welcoming the delegates who will be attending this summit, crucial summit. The war in Ukraine and Chinese aggression towards Taiwan will dominate the G7 discussions this week. But we understand that Fumio Kishida is expected to carve out time to push for a pledge on nuclear weapons when leaders start the meeting in Hiroshima. The leaders began arriving yesterday ahead of an expected visit on Saturday to the city's Peace Memorial Museum, which contains exhibits showing the scale of the tragedy that unfolded after the US dropped a nuclear bomb on the morning of August 6th, 1945, killing 140,000 people by the end of the year. So the G7 summit has already begun. WION World is already there. Our principal diplomatic correspondent, Sidhan Sibol, will be giving us the latest updates from this summit.
As G7 leaders gather in Hiroshima, focus on China and Russia's growing influence, and an opportunity to build stronger, deeper cooperation with allies and friends.
Will G7 leaders form consensus on global issues, from climate change to artificial intelligence to clean technology?
WION is on the ground in Hiroshima, bringing you all the developments.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.